Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Stoltari, and I am a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last few years, I have been focusing my attention on the filles du roi and trying to get to know their stories a little bit better. This past January, I decided I wanted to start a concurrent series called The Marriageable Girls, Les Filles à Marier. These are the ladies that came before. There are over 262 of them. We are now on, I believe it's going to be episode 53. So we've come a long way, but we still need to keep going. So before we begin, let me show you ways you can support the channel. The first three keep you in the know. Subscribe, like, and notify. The next three are ways to help the channel grow. We have Coffee and Patreon that are standalone platforms. And then we have the YouTube, not the YouTube, but my PayPal that is found on my Have Roots Will Travel website. You can click on that and donate as well. Thank you so much to all of you who have donated and supported me thus far. Truly appreciate you in more ways than I can ever say. So thank you so much. So let's get started, shall we? And so we begin with Les Filles à Marier, the marriageable girls. As you can see by the date, 1634 to 1662, this was early on in New France's history. In 1632, they had just reacquired New France from the British, who had conquered her for 3 years, from 1629 to 1632. And so they were just beginning to come back and absolutely reclaim this land. It was time now to get serious. And what happened was they just needed ladies to come. And these ladies did not come as a government-sponsored program. They came individually. This was something that basically was told to the parish priests and different people that were already in New France, and it was a slow going. There were 262 approximately girls. That works out to about an average of 10 a year in a 28-year period. So there was not a lot of girls, but these ladies are truly remarkable in that they came when there was almost nothing in New France. And they helped establish those true founding families. This is where you're going to find the bedrock of New France. And in so doing, we sometimes find incredible stories. So let's get started with our Fille Marie of this episode, number 53. Her name is Marie Girard, and she is a viewer request. I do not have her in any of my files, so it was a pleasure to get to know Marie. So Marie was born in 1630 in the small town of Saint-Cyr-du-Vaudreuil in France. Her parents were Michel Girard and Françoise Graffard. She is from the Normandy region, where you can see the circle on the upper left hand of your screen. And then in the bottom left, we have the département or county. Eure is where she is from. We don't often see we see a lot of ladies from Normandy, but I haven't seen a lot from that particular département. Very interesting. This picture is actually a depiction of Saint-Cyr-du-Vaudreuil that I found on the internet. And this church that you see before you is actually the church where Anne would have been baptized. It still stands, but it was eventually deconsecrated. But it was originally built during the time that the 15th century. So it is a very old church. She arrived in New France in 1652. Her sister, Marie-Madeleine, would come to New France with her husband 5 years later. The groom she selected, and who selected her, his name was Antoine Girard de la Rivière. He was born in 1616 in a commune called Saint-Cosme de Verret in France. His parents were Noël Girard and Barbe Marchand. You can see by the map on your upper left that he was part of the Pays de la Loire region. And inside that region, he is from the Sarthe département. You can see an aerial view of the town. There are approximately 1,900 people that live there. And the church where he would have been baptized is the Church of Saint Augustin. Now, let's have a look at how Antoine ended up in New France. Antoine was a master carpenter, and he would arrive in New France as early as 1650. His clients would eventually include Noël Moret, Nicolas Juchereau. He would help the government with the Fort St. Louis, and also the governor's widow hired him to build her home, Barbe Boulogne. Now remember that Marie had arrived about 1652. By April 22nd, 1653, the match was made, and Antoine and Marie were married at Quebec City. They would settle down in Quebec City. Let's review a little bit about this incredible town. It is the capital city of the province of Quebec in Canada. 500,000 people live directly now at Quebec City. Quebec was originally named by the Algonquins, who named the area Quebec, K-E-B-E-C, which in their native language meant where the river narrows. Quebec City lies where the St. Lawrence River narrows. Samuel Champlain founded a French settlement here in 1608, and he called it Ville de Quebec, or Quebec City. The city walls which surrounded it still date back to this time period, making Quebec City the only city with remaining city walls north of Mexico in North America. There's so much to see in Quebec City, but I wanted to point out a couple of buildings that are really important because they would have existed when Antoine and Marie were there. La Maison Jacquette is the oldest surviving private residence in Quebec. It dates from 1675, and if you'd like to tour it, it's home to a famous restaurant, appropriately called Aux Anciens Canadiens, which roughly translated means to our old Canadians. Petit Champlain, which you see on the bottom here, claims to be the oldest commercial district in North America. So it's kind of neat to imagine they might have walked those very same steps. And then we have a much older map of New France in 1700, and one of the more vintage, if you will, maps of Quebec as well. They would go on to have 6 children. Jean would marry Jeanne Levasseur and have 5 children, all of whom made it. Jeanne's mother was Jeanne Charbonlang and was a fellow fille mariée who we have not yet profiled. Charles would die at the age of 23. Marie would marry Pierre Rivière, but would die before she had any descendants. Noël would marry Anne-Marie L'Archevêque and have 8 children, all of whom made it to adulthood. Pierre would die in infancy. Marie Elizabeth would die at 1 year of age. We have here the 1681 census where we can see Antoine, Charpentier, carpenter, Marie Girard. You can see the wide gap of age. We have Jean Rouillard, Charles, Marie, Noël, and then we have André and Léonard, who were both engagés, one of them for a domestic, and the other engagé pour apprenti. So Leonard Fauché was actually an apprentice to Antoine. Antoine would pass away suddenly on April 28, 1666, at the age of 50. Marie was newly pregnant with her last child, who was born 8 months later in December. For more information on Antoine, you can look at our French-Canadian ancestor, which is volume 19, which will tell you lots and lots of information on him. He's got a profile in there. If you go to the Facebook group that I've listed in the notes, they will give you access to this information. Please have a look at that. We have also Rose by Any Other Name. I love, and it comes from that book as well. These are the names of all of the children and how you might find Rouillard. So we have Audet, Bécard, Bouliot, De La Forêt, Fonville, Gouvet, La Rivière, Lecomte, Prénouveau, Pronovo, Rémillard, Ross, and Saint-Cyr. So all of these are names you need to have a look at to be able to see if possibly you link up with this particular fellow. And that can be found on page 216 of that volume. And we can see here in France is a lovely monument to the families that came from this area: Bisson, Bobillard, Bouchard, Daudier, Fortin, Garnier, Gasnier, Leroux, Mavry, Pouliot, Rocheron, Rouillard, that's our guy, Rovillois, Je me souviens. And lovely, lovely tribute to this particular part of France where so many immigrants came from. So in true Quebec fashion, the second groom would arrive, Maitre Moreau, who was born in 1642 in Gagne, Saint-Denis, in France. His parents were Louis Moreau and Jeanne Laurence. He is from the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region of France and the Deux-Sèvres department. There's approximately 1,700 people who live in that area to this day. The church at Saint-Denis, is absolutely still standing and dates from the 15th century. Maitre would arrive in New France on the Noir de Hollande, which was arrived in about 1664, and he would establish himself as a domestic working at Pierre Morphy's house. And you can see Maitre there on the very bottom of the 1666 census. On May 8, 1667, Maitre and Marie were married at Sillery. I have obtained the contract, and I have the link posted for you so that you can have a look for yourself as well and read it as at your will. The 1667 census does include Maitre and Marie. He is 25, she is 34. We have their children, his children, or her children, Jean, Charles, Noël, Marie, and one domestic. They have 5 beasts and 10 alfalfa, about 8 acres of land. So they would settle at Sillery, which is now one of the boroughs of Quebec City. But for well over 3 centuries, it was its own independent city. In 2002, Sillery, along with other small cities, was amalgamated into the larger region of Quebec City. Sillery was first established as Canada's first Indian reserve. It was named Saint Joseph, and the money for establishing the first settlement was provided by Noël Brulard de Sillery. Unfortunately, the native population fell victim to disease and other issues, and the reserve failed. The town was eventually named Sillery in honor of its benefactor and would become an important player in Quebec's lumber industry. On the upper left of your screen is a picture of Sillery's riverfront. I've included the map of where Sillery is, and also on the top right of how it became amalgamated within Quebec City. On the bottom right is the Maison des Jésuites de Sillery, or the Jesuits' House of Sillery. A fort was created here in the mid-1600s and would have been present during their time here. This actual house was the one built after the fort burned down twice and dates from 1703 to 1730. And now the second family grows. They would have 4 children in all. We have Louis, who married Marie-Catherine Bonhomme and had 4 children, all of whom made it to adulthood. Marie-Catherine's grandmother was Hélène Desportes, the first child born in Quebec, so truly part of Quebec's royalty. Valentin would not marry. Michel would marry Marie-Madeleine Bellot and have 6 children, all of whom would survive, and Jeanne Thérèse would pass away at the age of 1 year of age. The 1681 census finds Maitre and Marie. Maitre is 37, she is 48. Their children are Louis, Valentin, Michel. They have 2 guns, 4 bêtes à cornes, which are 4 goats, and 15 alfalfa. So they've increased their total, if you will, probably 12 acres of land that they now own. Marie would pass away in 1708 at the very good age of 78 for that period. She and Maitre were married 31 years. She would leave 115 descendants as of 1729. Maitre would pass away sometime after 1710. We do not have a record of his death. Here are some of my favorite resources, and one of the ones I love to go back to time and again is Sandra Goodwin's Maple Stars and Stripes, one of my favorite podcasts dealing with Quebec genealogy. Really and truly, if all you ever did was listen to this, you would learn so much and have just a wealth of knowledge and be able to kind of the tapestry that is Quebec is laid out in front of you as she talks and introduces different people, goes through so many of the resources that we need to use for doing Quebec research. Please have a look at Maple Stars and Stripes. I think you'll be very pleased. And so ends episode 53 of Les Filles Mariées. Marie Girard, what a woman, truly a woman of substance. She went from one man who had a great deal of influence to another man who also was able to make an impact, and she was right there with them. She lived a long life, 78 years of age, and produced descendants that are still here today. She left a lasting legacy. So for that, we thank her, we bless her memory, and we are ever so grateful she came to our shores. And I also want to say thank you to my patrons and supporters who are just the backbone of what I do. I appreciate any and all suggestions, your support, your enthusiasm, all of that keeps me going. So thank you so much. And until I see you on episode 54, au revoir.